Hello everyone, let us start today with the unit number 2 of ISEE, that is Management Information System, MIS. Here is the syllabus part which is included for the unit number 2. It is going to contain Managing Information System, Ethical and Social Issues, Information Technology Infrastructure and Choices, Information System Security and Control. And for the case study, we have Information Technology Infrastructure in a bank and information technology infrastructure in a manufacturing and process industry. So let us start with the first point, that is managing information system. So once again, managing information system is divided into 4 different parts. First is the challenges of managing the IT function, second is the vendor management, third is the role of CIO, and fourth one is the IT governance. So we will start with the first point, that is challenges of managing the IT function. So here it is going to have information composed about the modern IT environment, centralization versus decentralization, IT security and technology selection. Based upon all these 4 points, we can write the answer for challenges of managing the IT function, which is the first point of your managing information system. So let us start. When we are going to consider challenges of managing the IT function, at that time modern IT environment is the most important. So it is the basic challenge which need to be faced. So according to this modern IT environment, it is going to have always a dynamic environment. Means what? It is not static. So it is a changing environment with that of a technology. As we are knowing that technology is never constant. So there is a need to adapt the new changes. So adaptation of that new technology related to that of a IT. For example, we can consider as a bank one. So there is a adoption of your internet banking. If it is going to make the use of that IT infrastructure, then due to that transaction processing will be faster. For that purpose, whatever will be the staff, it need to be reconstruct. Means what? Those faculties who are not employees, those who are not having the knowledge about that of a handling of IT infrastructure, they have to reconstruct one. Here there might be a need so as to remove some of the department, because it can be handled at one place, so there is no need of number of departments also. They are going to have, by making the use of modern IT environment, there might be a first order effects due to which they can increase the speed and efficiency. Instead of using a traditional banking system, suppose we are going to make use of our IT environment, at the time there is a increased speed, efficiency is also going to increase. That means what? It is going to have a first order effect. Second order effects means what? Restructuring of organization, retraining of the workers. Those employees who are working within that particular organization, and if they are going to make the use of your IT environment, at that time there is a need to have somewhat restructuring of that particular organization, or the employees who are working within that particular organization, they should have a get proper training to handle all these one. And here third order effects means what? On which it is going to affect? It is the restructuring of the industry. So first effect is directly due to the your customer, which are going to have a satisfaction, means they are having the increased speed and efficiency. Secondly, it is going to have effect on that particular organization or the employees who are working within that particular organization. And the third order effect they are going to have in the industries which are belonging to that particular environment one. So here is the modern IT environment. As already we have seen, it is a dynamic, means what? We have to change according to technology. Let us start with the second challenge of managing the IT function, that is centralization versus decentralization. Firstly, we have to check whether centralized system to be occupied or whether it is a decentralization system one. So central IT for all the departments means what? There is only one single MIS which can handle all the department within that particular organization, and opposite to that we can say as a decentralized system. So let us start with the first, central IT for all the department. So organization divisions which manufacture different item, means what? We are are having one organization, it has various departments, they are having the sales purchase department, then we can have a manufacturing department. So there might be a number of divisions. One, they have own supply chain of vendors, its own manufacturing unit and marketing unit. So when we are going to have each of this department, they can have their own vendors who are going to handle all the unit one. So all data that is managed at one central IT unit. That means what, here only a single MIS is there which can handle all these departments, all this division one, and we have to keep all the data in the centralized manner as well. So here is the standardization, means what, it is going to have all the divisions, they are having a standard format. So there is a one uniqueness available due to this centralized one. So all components like a software or there might be a physical, they must have be of the same type. Vendors, better to have this system preferable, means what, those vendors we are going to handle or the organization is going to handle, they have a only single point of communication. That means what, there is a no any miscommunication in between handling these vendors one. So it will be easy due to that centralized IT environment. Next to that, innovation, this works with the technology, as if any of the department is going to do something new thing, then that the same thing can be acquired by another division also. So that is the innovation one. Now different IT per department means what, decentralization. So number of MIS or the IT infrastructure, it can be made available to each of the department. So university, let us take example, they contain the different colleges which are having own IT units which support for the computers and servers for that department. Only the services managed at central are payroll, means whenever we are having a payroll related activities, that can be managed at the central level, but the task which is going to carried out day to day, all these are carried out at their own units along with that own IT units one. So according to need, as per the need of organization, we can make a decision whether to keep a decentralized system or whether to keep a centralized system. As per the work culture, we can decide that one. So here career paths of the IT staff, they can be internal IT staff which are needed, means what, there is a once again need to have the training to that of a peoples who can manage either a centralized or either a decentralized system one. So as per need of that particular organization, we can decide which need to be adapted one. Let us start next, that is the IT security, which is the most important security concept. So here related to your IT environment, there are mainly two different threats which can be possible, which are going to compromise your security. So first one is the external threat and second one is the internal threat. So according to external threat, we are familiar with that. Few of the examples are given here. First one is, we can say as a malware, which are harmful software like our viruses or the worms, which are intentionally made to harm that particular system. Secondly, we can say as there might be the humans which can compromise to our security and they are not the part of our organization. That's why we are calling that one as an external threat. So these humans are intended so as to get our data, like means what we can say as a, these are the data thefts one. Now next to that, there is a phishing, which can be also a part, we can say as a external threat, which is used to break our system by knowing the login and password, all the account details, all the information of that particular organization which is having a important information or the data put into that particular system, it can be broken down out. So along with this external threat, these are few of the examples which are mentioned. Now here what can be the internal threats which can compromise our IT security? So these are just like the records, files or the entire database which can be accessed by anyone if they are not careful protected. So suppose we are sitting on a particular machine which is having a important data, and meanwhile a time, if we are not there at our place and another person is going to come and they are going to get access of that data, then it might be a problem. That means what? once again, if we are not handling that data carefully, then there might be a compromise with that security. So within that, meanwhile, the theft of information, or we can say as the replication of sensitive information, leaking of that information to competitors also, corruptions of data, replacement of the files with the fake files, it can be happening. So we should have to be, as an internal employee of that organization, we should be careful about that internal security one. So when we are going to have, just like a antivirus software should be there, username and password, they should be given to that particular machine, or it must be periodically checked always. So that is nothing but your managing security. So if any of the information is important for us, and if it should not be compromised by our external threats or internal threat, then the concept used for handling the security is managing security, which is going to have the three more points as a authentication, monitoring and security level maintenance one. So here, when we are going to have a selection of the technology, it is one of the most important challenge. So for this technology selection, it is the application of scientific knowledge for a practical purpose, especially in the industries one. So machineries and the devices which are developed from the scientific knowledge, we can say that one as a technology selection. Which technology will be best suitable in the either form of either a physical devices, or we can say in the form of software, that means logical way also. So that technology selection is the most important. So when we are going to have this technology selection for as a IT environment for our organization, at that time we have to consider all these points. One first point, most important, is the cost. So money, that matters everything. So for that purpose, cost, price at which the technology can be acquired, means what, whatever will be the our benefit that we are getting by acquiring that particular technology. If it is more, then sure shot we can buy that particular technology, or we can select that particular technology. If the number of softwares, if the number of hardwares, these are available and it is best suitable for as a IT infrastructure for my organization, then and I am getting the profit, at the time I can choose that. So that is the cost need to be considered. Second one is the scalability. Scalability means what? Scaling of the technology to meet the growing need of organization. Suppose I have considered one of the technology selection which can be applicable to make use of either a 10 people's one, and as I am going to make use of that technology, day by day my organization is going on to be increased. That means what? Instead of those 10 peoples, now my employees are going to increase up to 100. So can I use the same technology instead of using 10, whether it can be applicable to 100 or not? That is nothing but the scalability. Interoperability means what? That is the ease with which a new technology will work with the existing technology. It means there should be a software or the hardware which I can make use without removing the previous technology. Means what? There should be a handshake in between the new adopted technology and the existing technology. Security, of course, it is the most important. So how secure is the technology with regard to organization activities? Just we can take example. Suppose there is a mobile. If we want to download any of the software, then we are just going to our Play Store and we are downloading that one. But before downloading that, the Play Store is going to check whether it is a secure or not. That means what? Security, adopting such a new technology within our organization is also an important concept one. Next to that, maturity. How mature is the technology in its innovation cycle, and whether it has been tested enough, or it's a new, or there is a something risk if we are going to carry out that one. Means what? As the experience related to that technology is going to increase, the number of people are going to have their own testimonials. If they are saying that technology use is the best one, if we are getting the feedback, that means what? It is enough mature. There is no risk by making the use of such a technology. So at that time we can adopt that particular technology. Now next one is the upgrade. How will the technology mature further, and how well will be it in integrate with the existing technology, means whether there is a updation available. We can say as there is a periodic update of each and every software. They are having their particular lifetime related to that. They after that they should be updated, upgraded. So whether our technology is in that category or not, we have to check for it. That is the technology selection. Next, vendor management. Vendor management means what? Already we are familiar with that. Who is the vendor? Vendor means what? Those persons who are going to provide us some of the services. One means what? Organizations, they are generally rely on those vendors for what? So as to provide certain services. It may be one-time purchase or long-time contract one. So vendor may be a single person or a firm. So these are the person or the firms who are going to provide us as an organization some of the services which we are not going to have within our own organization. So managing such a vendor is a big challenge. So what are the different challenges related to managing such a vendor are given as follows. First is the vendor selection, second is the vendor contracts and the service level, third one is the ongoing relationship management, and next to that is the vendor retention or termination. Now let us start with the first, that is the vendor selection. How these service providers or the vendors are selected? It is having a particular process. Like what first is the identified and located through the different processes. Which are those processes? How we are knowing that who is the vendor within that particular service provision one. So first is through the paper advertisement, stating the requirements and ask vendor to respond. So simply we have to put a paper advertisement related to our needed service. So we can get the response from those particular vendors one. Or the second way is through the online and published list of industries. Suppose we are having India Mart like website, and we are getting there the number of contact numbers of the dealers who are going to provide us a particular machinery one. Like the same way here, suppose I want to get a IT services, there are few of the companies, few of the databases which are going to provide us such a list of the number of vendors who are going to provide that particular service. Suppose I want to get a service related to a application development, or we can say as a website development. Suppose there is a printer service. So such a type of a services provider, these are having to be online published on that website. So we can get the vendors from there also. Or like our phone directory, there is a presence of your directories also, which is going to contain a particular name list of the vendors who are going to provide such a IT services for us. So that is the list where we can get the number of vendors one. Now after initial this screening, once we have searched for particular vendor, the vendors are requested to bid for a service or the project. Suppose I have listed out 2 to 3 or 5 to 10 vendors, and I can have a bid in between them. Means who is the service provider, who is the vendor who will give me best service within the less price, and what are their criterias. So that is nothing but the request for bidding one. Now once we have gone through this process, the vendors, or for this process the vendors, they can visit us personally, and they can give the presentation about their capabilities, whatever will be providing, and the services, how they are best. They can provide us all this information one. So we have to check rating of those vendors. Means already the vendors might have worked along with the other organization. So according to those other organization, what will be the rating of those vendors? 1 star, 2 star, related when we are going to buy some product, as a customer we are giving feedback. Like the same way here, for that particular vendor, the other organization for which they have worked, they can give the feedback one. So that is the check rating of the vendors. Next, if vendor is suitable, then we can proceed. Means if we are agree with all the terms and conditions which are given within the first 4 to 5 lines, then we can proceed for the next is the vendor contract and service level. Means what? We have finalized who will be service provider for our organization. Then we have to make the contract one, and we have to decide the service levels also. So once the vendor is selected, a contract has to be drawn up, which is going to clearly specify the terms of work, payment, service level, etc. Means suppose we are taking a server, we can say as a bank server, or we can say another type of a servers. So if that vendor is going to provide a particular server, then we have to ask about what is the downtime of it per day, per week, per month, per year. So how many time it need to be serviced. So server is the most important. Suppose it is a server like a bank, then we are getting some of the time messages from the bank also, internet bank. Your server is in process, so today it is not, website is not going to work within a particular time span. So that is nothing but a downtime. So how many time that particular server needs to be required a service one, that is given here. Next, many of the vendors keep many of the copies of server. If anyone is going to fail, it will replace by another. Few of the time there might be a crashes, so that machine, if it is going to fail, that server is going to fail, then the replica copy must be there. So if the vendor is going to provide such a type of a replica copy, then it will be better for that data security purpose also. So that is given in the vendor contract and service level. Next one is the ongoing relationship management. Once we have vendor has been hired, once we have decided to whom we want to work, a service level is also, means agreement is also made. It's important for IT management to ensure that a clear plan is placed. Whatever will be the clear plan, it is in the place to manage the ongoing relationship with that vendor. So what is the reporting time, whether that vendor should have to report us daily, or whether it is a weekly, whether it is a monthly, what are the different responsibilities given to that particular vendor. So whether client organization, they have to identify a particular, from our organization there should be a particular person who is going to decide, who is going to deal with that particular vendor. It should be identified. So here might be a single person, or here might be a particular team also. They are going to interact with a vendor. Vendor might be also a single person, or it might be a team also. So they must convey new and evolving requirement to that of a vendor as per the change in the need of organization. So suppose some of the technology is going to change related to that particular service provision. At that time, our being a client organization, our team or a person who is going to communicate with that particular vendor, it should be given a message to that particular vendor, this and this technology changed and we want this updated technology, so provide us that service according to new technology. So such a type of a communication must be there, and it is nothing but a ongoing relationship management. So here last one is the vendor retention or the termination. At the end of contract period, the vendor may be retained or their contract may be terminated. Suppose we have made a service provision, just like we can take example of a website development. We are going to have a service provider, vendors who are going to develop the website for us. So those website developers are going to make agreement of 1 year. Means what? There is only contract of 1 year. If those vendors are providing me a good service, then I can retain those vendor. I can continue my website development with those website developers one. But if they are not suitable for me, then I can terminate with those vendors also. So agreement termination might be there. So client organization has to decide service according to provided service quality by that of a vendor, whether there is a need to continue same vendor or whether the relationship is matured or stable. If it is not matured, if it is not stable, then we can terminate that particular vendor. So here is the all about that vendor selection, vendor retention, so as to keep the online relationship management, and last one is the vendor either retain that vendor or whether to terminate that one. So here is the next point, the role of CIO. So CIO is nothing but a chief information officer who is going to handle all the information. So here it is going to contain a IS plan, vendor coordination, technology update and return on investment of that particular technology. So start with one by one. IS plan. What it is going to contain? IS plan means what? Information system. If we want to implement, then a CIO is responsible for planning that one. And the documentary part, it is going to contain specifying the role of IT to support the different activities and processes. Secondly, the manager in which the IT infrastructure will be designed and managed. Also, it should contain a specific task that will have to be undertaken to manage that particular IS. Also, the organization setup of the employees and reporting relationships that will be created. And finally, this document, IS plan document, is going to contain the policies that will be followed for the use of that IS one. So all these are nothing but the documentary part which need to be contained within a IS plan, and it is defined by that of a CIO by discussion with that of a higher management one. That is the given as a role of CIO. Second one is the vendor coordination. Now already we have seen there is a need of one person or the team from a client organization for the communication with the vendor. So CIO is the person who might be responsible for this vendor coordination. The CIO is usually a nodal person who is going to interface with the large vendors one, particularly for the centralized IT management. So he is or she is a single person who is going to handle the vendor one. CIO is responsible for selecting, contracting and managing that of a vendor. So all the activities related to that of a vendor, these can be handled by that of a CIO one. These are entailing the careful monitoring of the vendors and producing the reports of their activities for the top management. So whatever will be the report about the service that a CIO are getting, they have to make a report and they have to submit that to the top management for either to continue the service or whether to stop that service. Next is the technology update. So within the technology update, the CIO, they have to monitor the technical development which are happening in the industry. So according to that change in technology, the CIO must have their updates within the technology. This role requires certain background and knowledge of IT, and if they want to get such a type of a technological change knowledge, then they must have to attend the conferences and seminar to upgrade their technological knowledge. Which is most important, so as to select a technology or for upgrading the existing technology. So CIO, it plays most important role like a link between the needs of the organization and technological advancement. So that chief information officer is the most important person who is going to have the technological updates along with that vendor related activities. Next is return on investment. The person who is going to decide how much I am going to get in the profit once I am going to make use of a technology one. That is the need to be handled by that of a CIO. So it is the numerical measurement of financial value of an investment. Usually the computed, these are as in the percentage. For example, 100 units spent on a asset. The asset help to earn 10 units, then ROI is given as a 10%. Means what? How much benefit I am getting in the percentage when I am going to invest for a new technology, whether it is giving me somewhat ROI as a profit or not. Means what? Return on investment is the most important concept. So role of CIO is once again to find how much of the ROI by investing within that particular infrastructure or the IT infrastructure. So CIO has to ensure that by making the use of that IT investment, they are leading to an adequate return. At least whatever we are going to get into invested, that investment should be returned back to me. So that is the main ensurety. by that of a CIO. So which needs improves the processes that are supported by that of a IT need to be think. Here is the next point, that is the IT governance. Governance means what? It is an organization which is going to specify the high level decision making capacities of that of an individual and groups, which are ultimately guide the everyday management of the organization and its activities. Means what? Some of the rules are defined within that particular organization which need to be followed. So such a roles and responsibilities related to all the stakeholders, that is nothing but the IT governance. So what it is going to exactly contain? These are nothing but the IT principle, IT architecture, IT services, business application need and its budget one. So IT principle means what? They are the high level ideas about how to use IT. Suppose we are going to adequate or acquire that particular IT infrastructure, at that time there are some high level ideas which should be known to each and every person, that are defined within a documentary part, that is nothing but your IT principles. Now next to that, IT architecture means what? A blueprint or the technical plan which can be made how it is going to work, related to your hardware, related to your software, or we can say as a network. All these components collectively together, how they are going to work, that a technical plan is made. It is nothing but your IT architecture. Next to that, IT services. So these are the functions which are required throughout the organization. So what are the different services need to be followed within that particular organization? That is nothing but the IT services. Next is the business application need. So specific applications which are required for the different departments and the functional need. These are divided under the business application need. Next is the IT budget. It is the most important, which is the money allocated for spending on that of a IT. Suppose I am going to have a profit by making the use of this IT infrastructure. At that time, I can make a particular budget yearly, that we can say as an annual budget, for allocating the money for handling this IT infrastructure. So here is the end of your point 1 from the unit number